In 1906, Charles Lang Freer, an American businessman, was on his first trip to Cairo. He came to buy ancient ceramics. In Washington, I meet up again with Bible expert Dr. Kent Clark, who I last saw at St. Catherine's in Egypt.
This becomes his concentrated years of collecting. And so part of that process, he makes 5 independent trips to the Far East and basically world travels. So the first time that he reaches Egypt is in 1906.
Freer's first port of call were the bazaars of Cairo. His mission was to buy rare Egyptian ceramics. Today, the Egyptian antiquities market is subject to stringent legal controls. At the time, regulation was more relaxed. The old market here was Freer's hunting ground. He'd spend his time in and out of shops looking to buy antique pottery, until he was tipped off about something far more intriguing. Freer was introduced to a local dealer, Ali Arabi, who invited the American to Giza, just outside Cairo. Here, Freer visited the Mina House Hotel. Next to the pyramids, it was a magnet for well-heeled Western travelers. Inside the hotel, Ali Arabi had his shop. Freer was invited to see some ancient biblical manuscripts.
There's some cloak and dagger involved in the story because the German has seen the manuscripts before, almost certainly. The famous Grenfell and Hunt, the Englishmen, have seen the manuscript before, and for some reason, neither has bought it. The price seems to be too high.
When Freer saw the manuscripts, he was dumbfounded. They included an ancient Greek codex with the 4 New Testament Gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. According to Freer, he was swept off his feet. Now, normally, Freer was a really cautious collector, but on that day, he acted totally out of character. He'd seen the manuscript in the morning, and without verifying it with any other specialists, by that afternoon, he shelled out a huge amount of money for it. Freer took his codex to America. The Gospels and other manuscripts had cost him $7,750, but it seemed money well spent as the discovery hit the headlines.
The newspaper clipping here just shows you kind of the popular sensationalization of these manuscripts. These were a significant find. It was
He's
like,
even got the pith helmet.
And at the top you can read bartering for the precious biblical manuscripts. Charles Lang Freer tells the story of his great finds in Egypt's sands. I mean, this really is the Indiana Jones of the day.
The codex was extraordinary. Written on parchment and bound between wooden covers, it would eventually be determined to be the 3rd oldest gospel collection in the world, dated around the 5th century AD. And there was something unique about this gospel collection, known as the Washington Codex, the ending of the Gospel of Mark.
The principal element only found in this manuscript is what's known as the Freer Logion. This is actually a passage at the very end of Mark that appears in no other manuscript out of thousands of Greek copies of the Bible.
Unlike the Sinaiticus and Syriacus, the Washington Codex has the long ending of Mark with the resurrection appearances. But inserted into this long ending is a whole new passage, the Freer Logion.
So this is a paragraph in which Christ appears to the disciples, and he berates them for not believing in him and his resurrection. And they say, "Excuse us, but we're misled by Satan." And he says, actually, Satan's days are over, but there are horrors still to come.
The Jesus saying declaring the end of Satan had been mentioned by the early church fathers. But for the first time, the passage was confirmed as part of a biblical text, fresh evidence of various attempts to provide a more suitable ending for the Gospel of Mark.
Freer brings this gospel manuscript home, and lo and behold, here in a Greek manuscript of the Gospels from 5th century maybe, you have it there. So it was phenomenal. It hit newspaper headlines around the world.
Realizing how important his purchase was, Freer was keen to retrace his steps.
In 1908, he makes his second trip to Egypt, and the primary purpose of him coming is to find out the provenance of where the Freer manuscripts were discovered, because there's pretty strong speculation that there'll be more materials that can be found there. And so in discussions with Arabi, Freer recognizes that Arabi is trying to protect the so-called digger, the person who found the manuscripts. He's never named, he's only ever called the digger in the correspondence, right from beginning to end, so we never know the name.
Eventually, Arabi suggested the Gospels had been founded in an abandoned desert site at the Fayoum Oasis south of Cairo. But in public, Freer promoted the view that the manuscript came from the famous White Monastery near Sohag, 200 miles further south. It was a ploy to throw rival Bible hunters off the scent. Freer was loving the adventure.
I am enjoying the quest greatly. Poker and all other games are nothing. It's real living, real experience, and beats winning a big contract for boxcars out of sight.
Freer spent huge amounts to investigate the Fayoum Oasis location suggested by Ali Arabi. Freer's search led to the ruins of an abandoned site here on the edge of this ancient lake. His team excavated all around the site, but failed to locate any old biblical manuscripts. The trail had gone cold. In America, the Washington Codex had become a key part of the Freer Gallery collection. Excitement continued to surround the discovery. The unique ending of Mark isn't the only feature that stands out in the Washington Codex. Forensic analysis gives us a rare glimpse into how the Bible was understood, its status in everyday Christian life. Emily Jacobson is the paper conservator for the Freer and Sackler galleries.
There are pages that have wax splatters on them, possibly from the text being read with a candle.
Can I
Sure.
see?
As we move to this opening, you can actually see these wax drops. So if you can imagine,
Some monk with his
they're
candle.
exactly
over this.
reading by
Wow.
candlelight.
In the front page of each of the four Gospels, the opening page of each of them, there are curious spots, little only in the front page, not in the rest of the Gospels. They are tallow, they're drippings from candles. And so this Gospel Codex early on became the prized possession of some monastery or group that was probably kept in a vault or someplace in the dark, and then brought out, and perhaps when visiting dignitaries like bishops or someone would come, they would show them their prized possession, and the bishop would be most interested in seeing the Holy Gospels associated with the apostles.
Clearly, this biblical text had taken on iconic status, and something else seems to have happened 200 years after the Codex was written.
Specialists have suggested that in the 7th century, the way it was bound was changed, and it was painted with these figures on the exterior. So possibly it was put on the altar, upright, so that you would see not the contents, not the written word, but the writers.
It was a key moment in the development of Christianity. Rather than be locked away, a biblical codex was revered. It suggested that the Bible text had taken on a sacred and divine character of its own. Freer's discovery marked the highlight of 60 years of Bible hunting. With the discovery of Sinaiticus and the discovery of Syriacus and the Washington Codex, where does that put our understanding of early Christianity?
Well, it shows that, with regard to the New Testament writings, it shows that the copyists and readers accidentally and deliberately, in some cases, altered what they were copying, in some cases through deliberate attempts to sort of try to improve the text or make it more readable.
How do you think that's changed the face of Christianity as a result?
If you demand a verbally inerrant Bible with no problems, you have problems. If, on the other hand, your Christian faith says, I don't need an inerrant Bible, all I need is a Bible that basically puts me in touch with the core teachings of Christian faith, you're okay. If you demand a perfect set of circumstances, you're in trouble.